sort of status and fame made you realize how many women are disloyal? This is something I spoke with Waller about a little bit.
Getting status and fame, because you can always, and I've noticed this with the things Andrew and I say, you're not doing it, but they're often misconstrued to be somehow a negative statement against women. Yeah. So every time I'm about to make one, I like to make the point that it's not just women.
Very fair.
Having money, having status, having fame definitely shows you how disloyal people are. So that's an example that I can apply to some women who I've met in my life, and it's an example I can apply to probably more men who I've met in my life. So I think that's just part of the package. But it's very good to go through hard things and to, get sent to jail and to, have all these attacks against you, because then you understand and realize who actually has your back, who's standing by your side. And you mentioned Justin Waller. Yeah. Justin Waller's awesome, man. When he was in America, I got out of jail. He goes, "I'm coming to see you boys." I say, "You sure? What if they arrest you and stuff?" He goes, "I'm fucking scared of jail." He's over at my house drinking whiskey with me. He doesn't give a shit, because he's one of those guys who's always got my back, So yeah, it's people are disloyal, men and women. And less disloyal, I'd use the term self-interested. Self-interested more than disloyal, because they're not looking to stab you in the back. They're looking to further whatever agendas they have, whether it be get famous, make money. So it's not that they necessarily want to throw you under the bus. They're just so self-interested that the benefit to them will outweigh any damage it will do to you in their own minds.
Do men peak between the ages of 35 and 45?
In some ways, that's cope for older dudes who are fat and lonely, pretending, LARPing in this magical universe that they're at peak age. Men peak for different reasons at certain times. I would say that I'm in my peak. I'm in my peak financially, my mindset, my intellect, everything there is about being a man within my soul and my brain and my heart is all peaked now. And I've improved with age in that way, but I've certainly got a lot less hair. When I was 27, I could probably beat myself up now at 27 years old, even though I was much lighter. I was a professional kickboxer. I was in, let's say, better shape, fewer injuries. So you fall apart in some ways and you come together in others.
On your hair, why aren't you bald? Because Andrew talks about this, that his dad said having hair was...
I don't look good with a bald head. Yeah. I've also had a difficult life. I have a bunch of scars down the side of my head. From various car crashes, etc. So the moment I shave my head, I look like a thug, and I prefer not to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to fight the battle against losing my hair for the rest of my life. But no, I think that a lot of men like me who grew up broke, who put the work in their entire life, can get to 35, 37, 36 I am now, probably older, and feel like, yes, now I'm in my peak. I get that, but never let that be an excuse for the men who are just coping. The men who, I don't know, were former Marines or they were in better shape or what, and they've just got married to some ugly bitch, had a few kids, they're broke, working some dead-end job, and they're like, yeah, I've peaked, I'm 40 years old now. I think that it's also a get-out-of-jail-free card for a lot of people who don't want to continue doing the work. I have to train twice as hard now to be in the shape I used to train half as hard to be in back in the past. So you peak in some ways, and you'll notice that as you get older. Even when you're my age, you'll have a lot less hair.
Yeah.
But so it depends what you mean peak. And women, and I guess a lot of women find older men attractive. A lot of women, even 20, 21, 22.
Yeah, do you notice you get more female attention at this age? Because you dated a very famous model here when you were at a young age.
Yeah, I was 28 back then.
Okay.
And I wasn't famous either. That was the first time I ever saw my face in a newspaper. But again, I've always been a man who tries very hard. I've always been a man who, tries his best to be as smart and as sharp and as rich and as professional as possible. Me at 28, as a man measured against who I am today, he doesn't even compare. But I still did okay for my age. So, yeah, there's different ways of peaking. It's a lot less simple than the female peak of attractiveness everyone talks about. It's a lot less simple than that, and it's a lot more complicated.
Have you ever been brutally rejected by a woman?
No, because there's no such thing as brutal rejection. Lots of women like me, lots of women don't. I've never been brutally rejected because I've never tried that hard. When I first started getting famous, back when I still had Instagram and I was platformed, Instagram DMs would get leaked. And as I said, they've been through my hard drives. I've never said anything stupid. I said to girls, hey, where you from? You want to go out sometime? No, never in a million years. And I literally just say, okay, no problem, smiley face. And then 2 years later, when I was getting famous, they'd post it. Ha ha ha, Tristan tried to sleep with me. I'm like, yeah, but I also sent that message to 500 other girls and 400 did sleep with me. So like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
So there was no such thing as a brutal rejection because I was never brutally trying. I was never trying to force someone to like me who didn't. So
I guess when you were younger, maybe.
no,
Anything
still,
like that?
still, as a man, you always have to know when to take no for an answer. Message her twice, maybe 3 times. If there's no reply, just give up, bro. Like, and it's so it doesn't matter. Like, I've been rejected loads of times. I've tried to speak with lots of different women, certainly in person. If I see a pretty girl and I walk up to her, she's like, no, I'm not interested. It's okay, well, have a wonderful evening. Goodbye. Like, what could possibly be brutal about it unless I was standing there insisting again and again, oh, well, maybe you're just stuck up like some idiots do. You see them on the internet and they look like fools. And then she'll say, well, you know what? You're a fucking idiot who's balding and you got a crooked nose. Like they've never had to be rude to me because I know when to take the hint and to just leave. So no, there's been no brutal rejections ever.
On Heartbreak, what does Heartbreak teach you?
Heartbreak teaches you the power of understanding that in life, things will always get better if you try to make them better. I'm not going to say her name, but there were girls who I dated when you were still a baby. So let's say I was 20 years old and she was 19 years old. I was 20 years old and we broke up for whatever reasons. This particular girl got some job where she had to move to London and I was upset about it. And now she's some 35-year-old middle-aged woman with, 2 unspectacular kids and a husband who's divorced her. And I'm just like, if the heartbreak had never happened, well, I'd be that guy. I'd be with her now. I wouldn't have done all the great things that I've done. Heartbreak sucks, and you do have to deal with it. And again, know when to walk away without begging or humiliating yourself, especially in this day and age of DMs and messages being recorded and stuff. And each heartbreak, like with every bad event that happens in life, sets an important marker that you eventually look back on a longer timeline and you see the growth and the self-improvement and maybe the hypothetical scenarios that would have happened had you stayed with that person or had you not been betrayed by that person. And yeah, it serves as very important markers on a timeline. But it's only once you progress a couple years past that timeline that you could see the knowledge in it, unless you do it the wrong way and let it spiral you into down the toilet of self-destruction. In which case, then you're like, oh, well, that's when my life went completely wrong. So no, that's when you chose to give up. They're 2 very different things. But heartbreak's fantastic. I wish my heart could still be broken. That would be nice.